Hey there, it's Laura here at Joy in Dementia. Thanks so much for joining me. Today we're going to talk about how I'm doing a little more than 8 months since my dad passed and what I've learned. And I'm also going to try to not fall out of this chair. There is like one slat missing and I'm just paranoid I'm going to fall into the grass. So anyway, if we have not met yet, my name is Laura Smothers Chu. I am the CEO and founder of Befriended Heart, where I help long distance daughters navigate their parents' dementia. So this week, especially, has been really hard. I know I mentioned in my 7-month video that I have been going through a process with my husband, also known as the fertility process or lack thereof, and trying to figure out how we can be parents. And just to be very honest and put it all out there, because I feel like along with dementia, the fertility journey, people don't talk about it very much. And I'm going to break the stigma of dementia. I'm going to break the stigma of infertility. So I am 36, soon to be 37 in February. Well, kind of soon. And I am being told by doctors that my eggs are not good enough quality. And Sam and I have experienced this in our 3 IUIs, in our 3 IVFs that have all failed, in my 3 miscarriages, that there is something about the quality of eggs that is off, even though I'm relatively young considering. So really, really big challenge. But Sam and I decided that we wanted to get a second opinion. And so we went outside of the box of this fertility center and went to this more innovative doctor who has his own practice. And this doctor seems to think that it is a something that can probably be easily fixed, luckily. We'll find out the results next week for sure. But he thinks that it could just be thyroid for me, or it could just be a BMI issue, which would like be a freaking miracle because that is fixable, you know. And then we'd probably try a new IVF, or there's something called ovarian regeneration, things like that. So we're looking into those things. I wanted to just rule everything out first. And in the big box fertility clinic, which is where we were first, they tend to not be as thorough. They do like maybe one test. They say you're fine. Like for example, with my thyroid, they said you're fine. With my BMI, they said I'm fine, right? And this doctor's like, no, you're not fine, right? So, and you guys have probably seen this too in, you know, your forgetful parents' visits to the hospital or to the doctors. There are some doctors that are like, he's fine. You know, I don't think it's dementia. And you're like, I'm pretty sure it is. And you get a second opinion, right? So I'm seeing a lot of parallels with my fertility journey and the dementia journey. So anyway, in this whole process, you know, my doctor wanted to retest some things or do some extra tests that are more thorough, which I appreciate. And one of those tests was like super, super invasive. And again, I'm going to be very real and open with you because I feel like we as women just push this stuff in the shadows. We suffer in the shadows and we can't really talk to anybody about it. So I'm going to talk about it. So I had a hysteroscopy, which I actually had before when I had my first miscarriage at 10 weeks. And that basically I was put under. I didn't know, you know, what was really happening. I just knew that all of everything was being cleaned out from the miscarriage, right? Which is emotional in itself, but at least I didn't have to have the additional physical pain of needing to go through that procedure and being awake for it. But this hysteroscopy, I was awake for. And I think it was because they were just checking to see if everything was okay. They tend to do this for recurrent miscarriages or just to see if anything's going on in the uterine wall or anything like that. But for that reason, it was like a Pap smear on steroids. It was like an extra long Pap smear. And I mean, Pap smears for me are pretty uncomfortable anyway. I think just because I just have more nerves there maybe than other people. I know women, it just varies. It varies. Everyone's body is different. Some are like, oh, that's fine. It doesn't bother me, you know, and then other women are like, oh yeah, I really felt that. So for me, I really feel Pap smears, and this hysteroscopy, like, wow. They call it minimally invasive, but it felt very invasive to me. And I was in, and I'm granted, you know, I had taken 3 ibuprofen the night before. And then I had taken 4 ibuprofen the hour before because they recommended 3. And I was like, I'm going to do 4 just in case. And even with 4 and a heating pad on top of me, like, it was still probably the most painful thing of my life. And granted, I haven't never broken anything. I've never sprained anything. I've never had to go to the hospital other than with this fertility stuff. So, you know, that's kind of my level of pain, but it was really painful to the point that, and well, let me just explain it. So basically it's like getting a Pap smear, but they stick a catheter through your cervix into your uterus, and they have a camera at the end of it to make sure there are no like polyps or cysts or anything. And then in addition to that, because they have to get a 3D view of your uterus, they fill it with saline, and that was probably the most uncomfortable. They call it dilating your cervix, but it really is like, you know, increasing the opening of your cervix and trying to see what's inside there. And like, that was the worst cramping I've ever felt. And granted, again, like, besides my miscarriage at 10 weeks, like, I have never had, you know, that bad of cramping before in my life. And not only was it really bad cramping, but like, they had to be inside during the cramping. Like, talk about really, really uncomfortable. And then as if that wasn't enough, then they took a biopsy of like the tissue inside my uterus to make sure everything was okay. And I think it was like maybe a 10-minute procedure. It felt like an hour procedure. And I was just like, I felt like at one point I was just like, I can't deal with the pain anymore. And the way that I dealt with that was I just started breathing really loudly, really heavily, just as though I was in labor, right? And I think my mindfulness and my meditation practice for that there was something else I could focus on other than the pain. But yeah, so it was not fun. It really, really, really sucked. So, and so after that, you know, and everything was taken out, I was asked, you know, are you feeling okay? And I was like, honestly, I'm not. I feel pretty faint. And of course, my voice at that point was like a quarter the amount, you know, the volume that you hear right now, because it's just so like everything's inside you at that point. But I was just like, I'm not okay. And I felt like I was going to faint. And my doctor was so kind, you know, he said, oh, you know, smell this. He gave me like an alcohol wipe. I smelled it. I started to feel a little bit better, but my body was still cramping like crazy. Like, I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't even get up. So I asked to take the heating pad with me to a bed that I know that was in the office. And so I laid down in the bed with the heating pad. I was just trying to like relax and trying to think about, you know, my husband was outside in the building lobby because he couldn't stay in the office because of Corona. So I was just thinking like, oh my God, do I need to call him to get my ibuprofen? Do I, how am I gonna, we drove separately to get there because he had to go to work afterwards. Just thinking like, how am I even gonna get up from this bed and like put my clothes back on, right? Because I was wearing those like scratchy little like vest things of paper that you put on, like that doesn't help you feel clothed at all. Like, I mean, you know, I have so many issues with like OBGYN appointments, and the fertility stuff has just made it even more apparent to me that there need to be more women making decisions about what the environment needs to be like and what these procedures need to be like. But anyway, that's another topic. But anyway, so I finally really thought about how the pain I was feeling, and I remembered my dad. I remembered my dad on the hospital bed right before he was about to get his first surgery. And at this point, he was in probably like the late stages, like maybe in the beginning of the late stages. But he had fallen in a doorway in his memory care and had ended up breaking his hip. And so he was getting a hip replacement. And it was like right before they brought him into surgery, where we were, the last time where we can talk with him. And they were putting the IV in his arm. And let me tell you guys, like, I have a huge fear of needles. You may have seen on my website about me that I hate needles. And I get that from my dad, because my dad was doing so well, being around us and everything. And then he kind of, he was still discombobulated, like wasn't sure exactly where he was. But because we were with him, he felt better. But when he saw that IV, he freaked out. Like, his eyes got really big. He started moving around, and trying to like get out of the bed. And it just crushed me, because first of all, I've never seen my dad scared before the dementia. And second of all, I just felt so helpless. And so what I ended up doing was I put his headphones on and kind of danced around to his music. And I kept saying, it's okay, Dad. It's okay. We're going to take care of you. It's okay. And he calmed down. But the fact that he could be brave in that situation, not even like really realizing that he was going to go into surgery and not be with us anymore, or that he had fallen and broken his hip. He just knew he was in pain. Like, if he can be brave in that situation, I can be brave in my situation too. And so I want to share the lesson with you guys that sometimes, and I know I felt this way, sometimes we feel like when our parents are diagnosed with dementia, that they can no longer teach us anything, right? Because we're the ones that take care of them. We're the ones that make the executive decisions. We're the ones that keep their schedules together. But our forgetful parents still have so much to teach us. And if your parent has passed away, I'm sure you've realized this, that you've taken on those lessons and you remember them in moments of fear or uncertainty, like in my experience of my terrible, terrible procedure. But then if you are, if you still have your forgetful parent, look for those lessons that they're teaching you. It may not look like the lessons that they taught you in the past, like when my dad taught me about stocks and bonds and diversifying your portfolio, right? It's not that type of lesson, but it's the lesson of unconditional love, of showing you how strong you are without having to depend on anybody else. And those are the lessons that, while I do remember that it's very important for me to diversify my stocks, it's the lessons of the unconditional love. It's the lessons of seeing his strength in that situation, remembering that, and being able to apply that to my experience. So now when I have another experience like that, where I feel completely helpless, I'm in a ton of pain, I can remember, I got up from that hospital bed and I was able to, change back into my clothes and go back out to my car, and I was okay. And I'm going to be okay. And I'm brave and I'm strong enough to make it through this. So that's the lesson for today. And what I would love to know from you is what your scary experience has been, or a time where you felt like you're not sure what's going to happen in the future, that fear of not knowing or losing control, and how a memory that you have about your parent, how, your forgetful parent in particular, how what they taught you maybe before the dementia and how to overcome challenges, or how you saw in their dementia journey how they were able to face a lot of pain emotionally and physically, and how you found that to be inspiration. So I hope that you will subscribe and like this video, and definitely comment below with your story and how you've been inspired by Your Forgetful Parent. I'll see you next time.